Hi there, and welcome to an exclusive video tutorial for Computer Music Magazine. My name is John Skippy Limcool, and I'm going to be host to take you through the process of creating rhythmic envelopes on 4 different virtual instruments. And this video is going to be basically mirroring an article that I wrote for Computer Music Magazine on rhythmic envelopes. But instead of just reading it, now you're going to get to step through the process and watch how things are done so you can do it yourself and maybe learn even a little bit more. Show you some tricks along the way as we go. I'm not just going to talk just rhythmic envelopes. There's more to cover than that. Now, this video is sponsored by my website, pluginguru.com. It's a website where I have custom power packs, which is a bank of patches. I support Native Instruments FM8, Native Instruments Massive, Stylus RMX, and I have a drum loop library called Beatropolis. On top of these patches that I sell, I provide free video tutorials on how to use these plugins I support. I'm a real big believer in video tutorials being a great way to get you plugged in. And once you're plugged in, you need more cool sounds. So then buy my banks of sounds and everybody's happy and off we go. Anyway, so we're going to be taking a look at a whole bunch of different ways of doing rhythmic envelopes. They don't all just use rhythmic EGs. Okay, so we're going to be taking a look at Absynth and its rhythmic envelopes. We're going to be taking a look also at Omnisphere, which has rhythmic envelopes with some considerably new upgraded features. We're going to be taking a look at the way that Ace works with rhythmic envelopes, which is actually a step sequencer that's called a mapping generator. It's kind of hidden in there a little bit, but I'll show you how to get to it really easy. And then we'll be taking a look at Native Instruments Massive, which does rhythmic envelope kind of things in a completely different way, using a different tool called the Performer. So there you go. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll learn a lot, and we'll see you around.
Check this out. Like this.
All right, the first synth we're going to look at is Absynth, and we're looking at Absynth 5. And 10 years ago, September, Absynth 1 came out. And way back then, it wasn't too long after that I got it and played with it and was blown away with what it could do. The sounds that it makes are so cool. And I did some patches for it, and I sent them to Brian. And in a revision of the factory voicing, he put some of my patches into the factory voicing. So I'm very happy to have a long relationship with Absynth, and I think it's a great program. We're going to take a look real quickly at how to do rhythmic envelopes. This was one of the first ones that could do it really easily without it being just an LFO shape doing pulses. All right, so the first step is to go up here when you're on the patch page and say new sound. So we all have a nice little simple sine wave, and you click right here to choose what waveform you want. And I want to use saw smooth. And you click right here in this little tiny stair step, and that will make it a high res Oz. So it sounds better. Go to envelope, and since they're all selected, we just want to choose the A oscillator. And you turn on sync, and we turn it to loop, which means that it now has 2 little markers here for the start of the loop and the end of the loop. And then right here under transform, we just go to generate AR pulse. And one trick that I tell people is to go here to number of beats and make it longer, and that way you've got the envelope to see over here because it blocks it otherwise. And then you can set it back short before you hit OK. But this way, at least when you're changing parameters, you can see what it's doing, because visual will tell you a lot about what you're actually going to be hearing. So when you play a note, it's pulsing, and it's doing it to 8th notes. And if you click in the middle of the 3, this is step-by-step super fine resolution, medium, and then coarse resolution. The medium resolution will let you change it in percentages that will equal like 0.250. That equals 16th notes. Whereas if you set it to 1, that's going to be quarter notes. And then the attack is for do you want an attack or do you want it to be a fade-in shape? And then the minimum amp is for if you want it to have a sustaining portion, or if you want it to be a straight pulse. Right now it's a straight pulse. As you bring this up. So, and then slope is probably the most important, because this controls the actual curvature of each of these decay little attack things. So you can set it how you want. And remember, this is going to set it for everything, and then you can go back after this and start messing it up. So let's set it back to say 4, say OK. So and now it loops. And the way these envelopes work is you just right click inside of them to add segments. And before we do any moving or something, we want to change from slide to lock, and we want to turn on our grid. And this way, as I grab these and move them, let's see, change your grid to 16th notes, and now you have even more resolution to play with. It doesn't move any other pointers after this. If you set it to slide, everything to the right of this one's going to move, and we don't want that. So you just play around. Just control click or right click a whole bunch of times. If you control click again, it goes away. So we got an idea of what we can do, right? Now let me show you a couple other things real quick. If we go back to patch, let's click in some of these boxes to turn things on. Let's turn on the filter. And the way that Absinthe works, it's a little different than most because it doesn't have a filter, e.g. intensity knob somewhere. What you do is you would bring this to the maximum value that you want it to go to. And now when you go to envelope, you can hit the little plus button. And right here you see filter show up because you turned it on. And once you choose filter, you can see what you have available to control with an envelope. And we want frequency, so we say OK. And so now we have both our amp and we have frequency, and if you hold down shift, you can see them both and then click between them. So let's go here and under edit, say copy envelope, and go here and say paste envelope. And now we've applied that shape to this. Let's add some resonance to make it kind of cool. Now, just real quickly, I'm going to just show you a couple other little cool things to play with. If you haven't played with Absinthe, it's pretty easy to use. Turn on here to turn on some more oscillators. Let's set this to a nice filtered sound so it's a little bit darker. That's kind of cool. The thing that makes Absinthe really the bomb is the wave shaper. And this, it's a little hot maybe at the beginning, even with a sine wave. So just bring down the input to like -5, -6. Then in the effects section, let's go over here real quick and hit parameters. The new etherizer, I'm not saying it right, I'm sure, is really cool. The one parameter you want to play with is take feedback up really high to start with so that it's got a kind of a reverby kind of. There's so much to play with. We will cover this in future tutorials. But rhythmic envelopes, you see how to copy and paste. Once you turn on a section here, if you turn on the filter for 3, now when you go to envelope and you hit new, if you go down the list, C is what they call the third oscillator, and there's the filter to the third oscillator, C1. So there you go. Okay, so that's about where we're going to stop right now with Absinthe, and now we're going to go to Omnisphere and take a look at some envelopes to do things a little bit differently.
Like this, like this. Put your hands up. Oh.
All right, now we're going to take a look at Omnisphere, and this is the future. This is where things are going, and it's really exciting. So hang on, watch this. This is crazy. So I'm going to quickly go to Omnisphere, and I'm going to go down to the folder, down to the groove elements, and in the bongos, I'm going to click on this so we can hear it first. So I like that groove. It's got a nice breakup of some busy stuff and some, you know, syncopated stuff. It's not just a straight 16th or 8th note just going crazy. So click and drag right here, put it on the desktop, go to Omnisphere, and we're going to choose a patch called Big Analog Strings. And if you can't find it, click in the search and type Big Analog Strings and it will show up. And it sounds like a nice Big Analog Strings. Before I start, I know this already. I want to go to the chorus. It's doing this delay chorus kind of thing, which is very nice, but it's a little heavy. It's perfect for a pad, but where I'm going to take it, it's not so perfect. So I'm bringing it down. Done. So we go over here to the envelope section and click the little triangle. And we want to first make sure that we turn link on and go between A and B and turn loop on, because we want them both to loop when we're done with this. And all you have to do at this point, believe it or not, is take that MIDI file that we just saved and drag it over this window and let go. And it immediately wow. Do you know how much time it takes to do that? If it didn't like calculate it for you? I mean, now it's done in real time. So the first thing I wanted to show you is that the release, it's really gated, which is great, but sometimes you don't want that. So I'm going to right click. Let's click right here and change this to curve 1 and click and drag it out to like say 10.5 or so, and have it up a little bit and have it come down. And this shape isn't conducive to a nice fade out. This is where it's going to be full volume for a long time, and then at the very end it fades out. So one nice thing with these newer spiffy programs is you just click on the envelope and you drag down and you're changing the shape of the curvature. Same with Absinthe, by the way. So you just click and drag, and now nice natural fade out. We like that. All right, so we've got now we're going to go click on the minus magnifying glass or click on edit. Either will take you back to the main patch edit page. And we're going to modify the filter a little bit. We're going to take this down to 0.8. Bring resonance up. And we're going to bring the envelope down so that it doesn't have quite so much effect on the sound. And so it's now nicely resonated and kind of dark. So now all we have to do, I'm going to sign up just as we do in the tutorial. I'm going to go over here to modulate and say modulate with envelope. And it immediately selects the next available unused modulation source, which is modulation source mod 1. So you hit your little plus button and you can play it. Now right here, this little triangle, this is an awesome triangle. We like this triangle because this allows you to get to presets, and you can make your own folder where you save your own. Let's go to rhythmic envelopes, and let's go up here to first one called Dingo Groove, which is a nice cool little let's try another one. Here's Hipster Groove, which is kind of cool. That's cool. Now, what we were talking about in the tutorial also is that now with Omnisphere, we were talking about in this in the printed tutorial, is that it's really cool now that the same parameters that change the synth sounds can change the effect sounds. So let's go to the effects. Now the rule with the effects, let me explain this really quick with the Omnisphere. A is oscillator A, B is oscillator B. When you go to the effects, there's an A for oscillator A, B for oscillator B. Common is at the end of the A and the B separated mix effect racks. There's a combined effect rack for EQ or something that everything can go through. That's where they put the chorus echo, so that way everything goes through the chorus echo. But the rule with getting modulations like LFOs and envelopes to change synth parameters is that they have to be connected. If it's the A oscillator, then it would be the A effect rack that you would go to. If it's the B effect rack, then that means you have to be working on the B oscillator. So you can turn off link because we're going to be separated. Now we'll just work on A for a minute. And let's go to A, click and go down to the bottom of the list and choose Proverb, which is a nice reverb. Let's make it really big. And then make it go away. Now to assign any modulation source to anything in Omnisphere is just a right click. So you right click on whatever you want and you can assign it to something. So you right click on this, modulate, and I'm going to go down to the bottom of the list. And here I see all my possible modulation sources, and I'm going to choose mod envelope 1 because that's the same thing the filter is assigned to. So I just say click and boom, it's done. Now if we can go over here to the edit page, you can see here where the default is and how much the envelope is taking effect. Let's bring this up a little bit so it's got a little, bring this up higher so it goes. That's just touching the surface, because anything you click, anywhere you click inside of Omnisphere, for almost everything, that says modulate, and you can go choosing all sorts of things to modulate with. So there you go, Omnisphere. Now let's go on to ACE. All right, now we're going to take a look at one of my favorite current analog synthesizers, and that would be ACE. This is a really scary little synth. So I love this synth. I mean, that's just beautiful. That's a beautiful sound. If you hit initialize, we can do this tutorial. Because both this and Massive, we're going to take a look at a different way of getting rhythm out of the instrument. In fact, this is with ACE. This was a situation where I emailed Urs and I was working on it, and I wanted some stuff to do more variety of rhythmic kind of things because I love rhythmic kind of stuff, and it wasn't there. But he has this mapping generator that's really cool, and I said, isn't there a way to assign it so that you could use it in the LFO section? And the next day he sent me a beta which had it working in the LFO2 section. So he's great. All right, so the concept here is pretty simple. This mapping generator can be used as a step sequencer, and I'm going to show you how to get it set up to work. You right click in the mapping generator. It's up to 128 separate steps because it can do some really cool other things. But we just want it to be, say, 8 or, well, let's say 16. We also want to go over here to the ramp clock and click here and set it to 4/4 sync. This makes the ramp, which is this little guy over here, it's now listening to clock for its speed instead of just being freewheeling and doing it whatever it wants to do. And we'll come back and we'll play these parameters here in a few minutes. So we've got a default initialized patch. Now all you have to do is click here 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And it says tap map, and there you go. And this is semi-modular, kind of like some of the other older vintage analog synths where you don't need cables. I mean, if you click somewhere, you have a cable now that you can move around and select. But as you can see, it says ADSR. These things underneath are describing what its default assignment is. So LFO2 is right here. So if I bring the cutoff down, bring resonance up, and bring key follow up, so follows. When I bring up LFO2, it's bubbling away. And you can go over to the tweak page and let's set this up a certain kind of, I like to do it kind of like this type of thing. You can do however you want. In fact, if you right click, you have all sorts of really cool mathematical stuff for soften, to soften the kind of like softens the space between. If you do soften a couple times, you'll see that it starts to get really lined up. It's cool. But if you want it to be more steppy, like I want it to be steppy right now, so we're gonna go like this, like that. Cool, for now. All right, so let's get the ramp involved. So as you can see, it's not assigned currently anywhere. As a default, that doesn't say ramp anywhere. So and we're not using ADSR2. So click right here on ramp and drag it up here and let go. And if you click on the cable, you can change the color of it. Come on, green. Where's green? There, green. Green. All right, take rest all the way down, and now it's going to be a pulse on half notes. And if you bring this down to 50, from 50 to 25, it will now be on eighth notes. But I like it up here at 50, so it's a quarter note pulse. If you set it at 100, it's every measure, 100% of the pulse. All right, so there's the start of a cool sound, right? And then I said to turn on stack. Here's where it gets interesting. It's set up so that the stacked voices have a knob for tuning. So you can offset the tuning a little bit for each one. And if you want, you have 2-octave range up and down. So let's say this one has up an octave. And if you hold down shift before you start dragging, it gives you fine resolution. Let's do this one 19 so we get a good, cool chord thing. Let's fine tune it a little bit. So we get this. And crosstalk is kind of a cool circuit bending kind of a trick thing, which will make it dirtier. Love it. And then finally, this is what really will scare you. So there's 2 knobs here which control the multiply and then an offset multiply. So it can do modifications to get super fast speeds to the LFOs, because these can go into some serious frequency ranges. Check this out. Here we go, ready? If you click here to make it semi, it's a smoother sounding. Go over here, add some EQ. Go up here, set it as a 4th groove, right? And let's bring down the mix, and bring up the damp, and bring down the feedback. The other thing to point out real quick that's cool with these filters is that as the gain goes up, the effect of the resonance goes down because it's overdriving the filter in software. Awesome. Fun stuff can be done here. So make sure you play with Ace if you haven't checked it out yet. All right, so that wraps it up for Ace. Let's go to Massive and see what rhythmic mayhem we can come up with there. All right, finally we're going to take a look at Massive. And this works in a completely different way for making rhythmic stuff. Its envelopes, they can loop, but they aren't tempo synced. And one real quick tip, because I get so many people asking me this all the time, because they move the knobs over here and it doesn't do anything. And that's because loop is off. As soon as you turn this to on, it goes crazy. And now you have all these different envelope shapes to choose from. And a morph, so that, let's see, we've got morph 1 here. As you go like this, the morph now will go between the two. Level will go between the level. Slope is for the decay time. And morph says whether it's playing this or that, because Massive's all is about playing between one thing or another thing. And then I'll show you a couple of the tricks in a minute. So make sure you turn loop to 1, and now it's being used once, and it stops wherever the sustain is, the level's your sustain. Or click and drag all the way up to infinity, or anywhere in between. If it's at infinity, then it's going to loop whatever weird pulsing shape you give it. And you can make broken synthesizer sounds and all sorts of cool stuff. But this has to be something besides off. If it's off, then these don't do anything. So there they go. That wasn't covered in the article, but it's just a freebie over here. So we want to go and first go to the browser. And we're going to click the magnifying glass because I want to type in here. It's called detune pulse. There it is. So we double click and we go back to the synth and so you go to number 8. The way this works, there's 4 envelopes and then there's 4 of these performance modulation sources that can be LFOs or they can be, it's all determined by this corner right here where you click and you select LFO, performer, or stepper. That's the case with every one. You could go to number 5 and change that to be also performer, level, or stepper. We're going to just do it to number 8. So we go right here and we set it to be performer. Boom. And we see this cool pulsy thing, right? So the first thing we want to do is we want to turn on sync and we want to turn on restart and turn off position. We want to move the X fade sequence to the top. This means we're looking at the top row for what it's going to do and bring the amp all the way up. If this is down, it won't do anything. Now all you do is click that little box right there and I've now got a number 8 attached to my mouse and I just click right here and so go over here and change your resolution, actually called ratio. If you set 16th, 1/16 is 16th notes. Let's do 8th notes. Now if you click and drag in here, whatever you do, it follows that. What's really cool is right here where it says load curve, you click this and boom, you have all of these curves and weird shapes and stuff to play with. It's really fun. So let's change this to be that curve and let's have this be that curve and this be this curve to meet it. This is a double. So, and this is a triplet. So let's see, that's like right here. And then 4 pulse. So. Wow. Cool, huh? Now, if you turn off load curve, right here, this X fade sequencer will alternate between whatever is the bottom row and the top row. So, pulsing. I didn't have time to show you this in the article because we don't have all that much steps for the process and only so much you can write. Let's say we don't want effect mix. That's number 5. It's probably on the reverb, yeah. So we can click right here and say off. And so now this, let's see, it's like that text and delete all the text and we're gonna call this X fade. This, if you click right here in this little triangle, it's now set up to this and then the next thing you have to do is give it an intensity. Oh, it's inverted. So we got to do it this way. Minimum, max. See? One else little thing I'll show you is when you choose a certain curvature, like say we want it to be a pulse like that. If you click and drag, it'll let you paint them all of the same curvature. If you click just once and then you go try to click again on another one, it won't be the same curvature. So that's how you get to do things where you have the same pulse being used for all 16 segments if you just want to change them all. So there you go. That's how you get the pulsar to work. And you can use this in any program. I could go to any program. Let's find something weird. There's weird. So go over here to number 8, and it's being used. But this isn't. Or if, no, it's not used because the level's down. So let's set it up, sync, restart, position off, 8th notes, top, and click right here and put it right there in the source. And I assigned 8, but I'm on 7. So let's click right here on 7 and quickly put that over here so it replaces it. There we go. That's what I was expecting was something kind of weird, right? All right, go to load curve. There you go. off you go. So you can do this to any patch now. Immediately just make sure that you click on the right little arrow thing to put into the source up here for the amplitude. And off you go. All right, well that concludes these tutorials for Computer Music Magazine. I am John Skippy Limcool. Make sure you visit my website, pluginguru.com, because there's more tutorials on other plugins for you to learn more stuff. And there's lots of patches for you to purchase for your plugins. I think I got some good patches you might want to check out. So there's demo banks actually for you to download as well. So see you later. See you next time. Bye.